Women have been discriminated, abused, and not considered as humans for years, but not being able to vote was an issue when only men can vote, and most women not being able to work. It would cause domestic strife, and there would be many disagreements with women working with men. Men had considered women worthless and made them housewives only. Only when war had started, women were serving in the war and taking care of factories and offices. The Wartime Election Act extended the vote to women that had husbands, sons, and fathers serving overseas. So when the males were inserted into act, women had voting rights from 1809 to 1849. Women had rights to vote for school trustees, when married or owned property. Women with property would have a couple of rights like voting, not as much as men. Early 1884, married women were not allowed to vote and their sisters were not allowed to inherit property at all. The Military Voters Act of 1917 allowed women and nurses in the armed services to vote. Soon women had the federal vote. In 1916, women had earned the vote in Manitoba and soon other provinces extended the vote to women as well. In the 1921 election, Agnes McPhail became the first woman to be elected in politics. McPhail will be the only woman in parliament until 1929. When Corrine Wilson became the first woman senator, eventually McPhail lost her seat in 1940. All women over the age of 21 were allowed to vote on January 19, 1919. That was improving and giving rights to women.
Sexism can affect any gender, but it most likely affects women. Sexism has been linked to stereotypical and gender roles. It also may include the belief that one sex or gender is intrinsically superior to another. U.S. women were not defined people until 1875. Gender has been used many times for discrimination against women in the political world. Gender stereotypes are widely held beliefs about the characteristics and behavior of women and men. Studies have found widely shared cultural beliefs that men are more socially valued and more competent than women in a number of activities. In 1961, Mr. Kennedy said to Eleanor Roosevelt that we want to be sure that women are used effectively. That means they had to stay home, do all the chores, take care of the kids while the men are working, and put their husband's needs before theirs.
Feminism has been occurring nearly since the Confederation time. It has been working to make conditions better for women and to expand their rights and make it equal. It has focused on better living conditions, equal wages as men, and with the help of politicians and women like the Famous Five, a group of women protesters, the women of Canada have better rights and a more public role in Canada.
Oh, damn.
Feminism has evolved tremendously in Canada with the help of politicians such as the Famous Five, who protested against other major figures such as the Supreme Court. And also much higher figures like the Prime Minister also have helped evolve feminism, such as the Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau released the Canadian Human Rights Act to help expand rights of women. Acts have also been released other than the Canadian Human Rights Act to help expand rights of women and to also make sure that they aren't taken away. Acts such as the Quebec legislation, the Criminal Code, and etc. also have added laws that abusing women was a crime. These acts have helped women living in Canada live their lives equally as males and have equal rights.
Less rights than male. Like when they get married, they're not allowed to own their own land, and they're not claim their child to their custody. Among many things in 19th century, women's and men's were questions served reacting to rights of male, and through 200 years history of male movements have sort of equal quality of men. The laws 200 years ago exclude women's general to do public life, but although the latter proved unpopular and workable in France, in New France 25 was an illegal age for women. That was a lot. The women got in slavery in 1980s. They get paid for it. And in 1970 became a consequence for their legal rights or lack. And the important thing is, women cannot go to work without their husband's permission in those times.
I am going to be talking about the working conditions of a woman. Women don't get to work like men just because we think they get pregnant and are weak. Did you know that 60% of women still work even if they have a kid under the age of 1? Women weren't allowed to work like a doctor or lawyers. They were mostly allowed to work in domestic services like maids, teaching, and factories. Worker unions were developed, but none of them allowed women or even counted them. Employers only hired women because it was much cheaper. Sexual harassment towards women was being considered being legal by government. Women today still have to face unequal pay and harassment. There is even a woman who was fired from Walmart for being pregnant and drinking water even though her doctor says she needs water.
In the 1970s and 1980s, violence against women was noticed publicly. Before that, people didn't really care. Technically, it was allowed, but people didn't care, and neither did the cops. Nobody would report it, and now, even still, only 10% of people report abuse. In 1982, there were major changes to the criminal code addressing the victim of sexual assault. In 1990, even more changes clarified the consent issues, because people were still confused. This made it more clear to people that it was the law to get consent from both parties.
Go.
Domestic violence was seen as a private matter in the family, even though it was illegal. The police did not get involved in domestic abuse. Even courts didn't really find a husband guilty of abuse without a witness. In the 1970s, women's organizations drew attention to the public that laws that were written down weren't being followed. To conclude the presentation, we believe that women should have all the same rights as men, even though that is not how history was. Women are also human and deserve the same respect that men do. Women also have had a rough history, and now it's become a lot better than it was before. But there are still problems that we can fix.